Calls for homeschool oversight are ramping up in response to a disturbing case this week in Charleston, where a little girl escaped her home, where police say she was handcuffed for 13 hours. Laura Southworth, who was arrested and charged with child neglect and unlawful restraint, had two of her children and two grandchildren living with her in a South Hills home. Police described the home as extremely messy. Southworth told police she handcuffed the 8-year-old girl because she was making a mess in the house and stealing food. Now, the girl managed to escape from the home with the handcuffs still on Monday morning and run to a neighbor's house for some help. We have since learned that the 3 school-aged kids in the house were pulled from school in October of 2022. We have more details on the homeschooling timeline tonight as Anna Saunders joins us live in the studio with reaction. Anna?
Gina, we have actually obtained Laura Southworth's letter of intent from October 2022, where she said she wanted to cut all ties to Kanawha County schools and homeschool her children. This case, along with the Kennedy Miller case, renewing calls for more checks and balances in the homeschool system. In Laura Southworth's 2022 letter of intent to homeschool the 4 children, she said she had her kids in virtual learning and expressed frustration that they were still being counted as absent. She attached all needed documentation, and according to Kanawha County Schools, she turned in the assessments that are required by state law to be turned in at grades 3, 5, 8, and 11. But according to Kanawha County and state data, only a third of families complete the assessments. Kanawha County School Superintendent Tom Williams says hands are tied from an enforcement standpoint because parents don't have to tell them what ages their children are and can hold back in advance as they please.
My understanding, even if they're not on level, there's not a lot we can do to bring them back into the school system.
Which is why he proposes that there should be a dedicated and funded homeschool social worker at each county who could make home visits.
And just check in, see where they are academically, see the conditions of the home. At least it would have a set of eyes on the children to make sure they're okay.
But the West Virginia Home Educators Association does not agree. President Roy Ramey says any form of assessment or oversight is too much.
Now, why would we ever ask somebody who doesn't test and educate like we do to test in a way that's not consistent with what we're doing? It doesn't work.
But in cases where children fall through the cracks, like this most recent one in Charleston and Kennedy Miller's in April, the homeschooled Boone County girl who apparently starved to death in her home, what can be done? Ramey says this is on Child Protective Services and the criminal justice system, not homeschool.
All of the issues that we've talked about are child neglect issues. None of it has to do with homeschool. So if you increase the homeschool regulations, all you're doing is making it more difficult for homeschoolers to pursue that endeavor.
Since Kennedy's case, Governor Justice has expressed interest in tightening up homeschool regulations. There have been attempts previously led by Delegate Sean Fluharty to enact Rayleigh's Law, named for a Fayette County child who was pulled from school and later died at the hands of the adults in her home. This law has come up during session for years and would have allowed counties to prevent or delay parents from homeschooling their kids if there is an active or pending child abuse or neglect case against them. It passed the House this year but was never taken up in the Senate.
This is about targeting individuals who are taking advantage of a system that allows for these loopholes in a state now. Since Rayleigh's Law, I guess we'll have Kennedy's Law next. How many of these children are we going to read about before we take action?
Williams says he is also in favor of what the State Association of School Administrators has proposed for the legislature to consider: yearly in-person assessments.
If you're truly doing what your job is to homeschool your students, and there are many wonderful parents who are doing a great job homeschooling students, then they wouldn't be afraid to do something like that, because it would let them know also your child's doing really well in reading, may need to do a little bit of work in math. It would give them information to help them as well.
Now, we know that all 4 kids in the Southworth case are now in the custody of Child Protective Services. We have asked CPS if there was any prior knowledge or involvement in the home. A spokesperson says the agency is aware of the, quote, serious and troubling circumstances involving Southworth, but could not comment further on any involvement due to the ongoing investigation and confidentiality laws. Live in the studio, Anna Saunders, Eyewitness News.